Well, g'day everyone. Tamron recently contacted me again to ask if I was interested in looking at another Fuji lens. They really have been doing wonderful work with lots of different manufacturers, which is fantastic. I particularly love the stuff that they do with Sony, but now they're also moving out to be doing lens with like Fuji as well. Now, I'll just show you what this one is. This is the 150-500. So you can see it's quite a big lens. I'm just looking at another monitor there. It is quite a big lens. This is the XT3 that they sent me to have a go with it. It'll give you an idea about how this looks. It does come with a lens cap too. So if I put the lens cap on, you'll see that it does add more length to the lens itself, but it does give you protection as well, and it will also stop things like sun flares and things like that. So it's a good idea to leave that on. The lens itself is an 82mm, so it's quite large, but if you wanted to use NDs and things like that, it is an 82mm. But you can see here that's so much glass there. That's why it's such a good idea to leave this lens cap on there. It does zoom out, so it's not an internal zooming lens. I wouldn't expect that though with a lens of this size. But there is a nice little bit of resistance there as well. Now there is a lock on this side here which will stop it. So if you lock that down, it will then lock at 150. That way it's not going to creep out at all. So if you're worried about it moving or creeping, if you didn't want it to, you could do that and lock that on. Like I said, at the moment it doesn't move at all, so there's no creep there at all, but there may be over time, so I suppose it's nice to have that on there. I'll show you all these other controls in a minute, how they work. There is also a lens mount here. Now it does have an Arca Swiss adapter on it. You can see here now it does come with a little kit that you can screw that off if you wanted to add other adapters onto this, so you're not stuck with that. But everything I've got is Arca Swiss, so I love the way I could just put this straight into my tripod and use it straight away. It is rotatable, so if you unscrew the side on here, that then will rotate, and then you could go and do your portraits or landscapes, whichever way you wanted it to go, which is terrific. It's great when you've got that on your tripod or a monopod or something like that, and you just want to quickly switch from going landscape to portrait, so that's a nice feature. Like I said, I do like the way it has these dots, so you can line them up on both portrait and landscape to make sure that it's dead level. As long as your tripod and monopod is level, that will work as well. It feels really quite nice. Look, it is front heavy on a camera that's this size. I would recommend definitely using, your mount here, because that will protect the lens and you haven't put all the weight on the camera itself or the camera mount. So I do recommend leaving it on a tripod, because if you do bring the lens right out, it is going to be very front heavy, so you've got to be careful with that. It also has this little selector here that if you push this forward, it will then really move very, very slowly, and you need quite a little bit of force to move it. So that's quite handy as well. If you take it down, then it will move very, very fast. So that's a nice feature. So let's have a look now at what the controls are on the lens. So on this side, I'll just show you here, this was the lock that we had here. Simple to just turn that on or off. This was the little bit that I showed you that if you move it forward, it becomes very, very hard to turn. If you take it off, it's very, very easy to turn. It does say here that it's a 150-500mm f5 to 6.7, so it is a variable aperture lens, but 6.7 is quite good if you're dealing with shooting at 500mm. It also has VC, stabilization, and it's got the silent motors as well, the silent focus motors. On this side here, you can see right here, this is where you undo to rotate this mount, the lens mount that's at the bottom here. On the side here, you've got multiple little features. So this here is your focus limiter. You've got 3 switches that you can sort of change between that. This manual focus switch here is quite interesting. If you're dealing with manual focus, if it's up at the top there, I hope this is the right way, it could be the other way, but I think this is correct. If you have it up the top there and you're doing manual focus, it focuses very quickly. But if you put it into the second position, it focuses a lot slower, which means you can be more critical in your autofocus. So that's a nice feature to have on the autofocus. You've got your stabilization, so it is a stabilized lens, and you can also turn that off as well. And here you've got the 3 modes of stabilization. So you've got your normal mode at the top, then you've got panning, which is mode 2, and mode 3 is if subjects are moving very, very quickly. It's not advisable to do panning with 1 or 3, though. You should use number 2 if you want to do your panning shots. So you've got a nice lot of control that you've got over this. So, it's really well made. So the build quality of this lens is really good. Feels great. There's a fair bit of heft there. You would expect that with this amount of glass though. And also, like I said before, that there's a nice little bit of give each time that you use this zoom ring. Also, your manual focus works quite nicely, particularly with that switch that I showed you before. It's amazing how accurate you can get if you're shooting manual focus with this at the same time as well. Great that it's got this nice mount on it, particularly that it's got the Arca Swiss plate already built in. And like I said, you could change that out if you didn't want to use that and you wanted to use something else. I use Arca Swiss anyway. So what I did was I used this lens on a monopod. I wanted to travel fairly light. And I went down to Bells Beach, which is a famous surf beach here in Australia. If you've watched Point Break, you would know about Bells Beach. It's one of the best surfing beaches in the world. It's fantastic. So I went down there for the day and just took a whole series of photos. I thought I'd try it in that scenario because I've got to send it back. So I had to think of something that I could do to sort of give this justice. But at this stage, I'm just going to show you the surfing shots that I grabbed. So it sort of worked on the tracking, how fast it could get focus and things like that. So I'll take you through that shoot anyway so you can have a look at it. So what do I think about this lens? I'm really happy with it actually. I love the focal length. The 150-500 is really good. And I do like the size of this, even though you're going to zoom out to get the full 500mm. It's quite nice and it's easy to fit in my camera bag at this size. Yes, it is quite big. You would need quite a large ND filter, obviously, if you're going to put NDs on this. But overall, the stabilization works great. The autofocus is really silent, as I've got used to with all other Tamron lenses as well. And I had a great time using it. So if you have any questions, leave them down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But thank you so much for Tamron for sending me this. I had an absolute ball, particularly using Fuji. I've been enjoying using them as well. Apart from that, everyone, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now. Okay.